subscribe to Storylab. Now, let's begin this one. The December sun hung low over the Arizona desert, casting long shadows across the compound where Clayton Duncan ran his morning drills. At 34, he moved with the precision of a man who'd spent half his life in hostile territory, every motion economical and purposeful. The shooting range echoed with controlled bursts as he emptied a magazine into targets at varying distances, each grouping tight enough to cover with a quarter. His phone buzzed. "Mom," he smiled, setting down the rifle to answer. "Clay, honey, your father's insisting we don't need your help with the Christmas lights." Megan Duncan's voice carried that familiar warmth that could dissolve the worst of his warm memories. "Tell him a 68-year-old man shouldn't be climbing ladders." Clayton chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Put him on. I'm spry as ever." Arnold Duncan's gruff voice came through. "Been climbing ladders since before you were born, son. Your mother worries too much." "She's right to worry. How about I drive down tomorrow? Help you with the setup. Stay through Christmas?" A pause. "You sure you can get away? Thought you boys were chasing ghosts down in Sonora." Clayton's jaw tightened slightly. His father knew better than to ask details about his work with the DEA's Special Operations Division, the unit that didn't officially exist on any organizational chart, the one that handled problems conventional law enforcement couldn't touch. "We're between operations. Could use some of Mom's cooking anyway." "Then come home, son. We'd love to have you." That conversation was 72 hours ago. Now Clayton stood in a safe house outside Tucson, watching the video for the 7th time, his face carved from stone as Christmas lights twinkled in the background of the screen. The footage showed his childhood home in Prescott Valley, the modest ranch house where he'd grown up, where his mother had taught him to read on the porch swing, where his father had shown him how to handle his first rifle. Only now flames consumed it, orange and hungry against the night sky. The camera panned with deliberate cruelty, making sure he could see the locked doors, the windows barred from outside. Then the audio cut in screams. His mother's voice calling his name. His father's roar of defiance cut short by choking smoke. The camera swiveled to show a face Clayton knew from dozens of surveillance photos and intelligence briefings. Victor Underwood, the Sinaloa Cartel's newly crowned regional boss, a man who'd clawed his way up through unprecedented brutality even by cartel standards. His smile was wide, genuine, delighted. "Merry Christmas, soldier." Underwood's voice dripped with theatrical malice. "Your team killed my cousin in Sonora last month. Diego was family. So now you understand. Family for family. Blood for blood." He took a sip from a tumbler of expensive whiskey, the flames reflecting in his designer sunglasses. "I wanted you to hear them. I wanted you to know exactly what it feels like to be powerless, to fail the people you love. Sleep well, Agent Duncan." The video ended. The file had been sent through encrypted channels that took the FBI's cyber division 3 hours to trace back to a burned phone in Hermosillo. Professional, untraceable, a message delivered with the certainty that Clayton could do nothing about it. They were wrong. Eric Melton stood across the room, arms crossed over his chest. He'd been with Clayton for 6 years, through 12 operations that had left body counts the government would never acknowledge. "Clay, man, we all loved Arnold and Megan. But you know what this is? You go after Underwood directly. You're starting a war the brass won't back. Then I'll fight it alone." Clayton's voice was flat, empty of everything except purpose. "Bullshit." Hugh Madden stepped forward, the team's tactical specialist, a wiry Texan with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. "You're not doing this solo. But we need to think smart. Underwood didn't get where he is by being stupid." Clayton finally looked away from the screen. "I've got 90 days of accumulated leave. Never take a vacation day in 6 years. Personnel has been on my ass to use them." Ross Barron, their intelligence analyst, caught the implication immediately. "You're officially on leave. Anything that happens is personal, not official DEA business. Can't stop me from taking a vacation. Can't stop me from what I do on my own time." Felix Potts, their demolitions expert, let out a low whistle. "You're talking about going off the reservation completely. No support, no backup from the agency. They'll disavow us the second things get loud." I'm not asking the agency for anything. I'm asking my friends. Clayton met each man's eyes in turn. I have money saved. I have contacts. I know where these animals sleep, where they eat, where they think they're safe. I'm going to systematically dismantle Underwood's organization piece by piece until there's nowhere left for him to hide. And then I'm going to make him understand what it means to fail the people who depend on you. Evan Cohen, their medic and the youngest of the group at 28, spoke quietly. Your mom made me tamales last Christmas. Sat with me for 2 hours talking about her garden because she knew I was lonely, missing my family. I'm in. One by one, they nodded. Jimmy Hobbs, Gabriel Collier, Cliff Fletcher, 8 operators who'd followed Clayton through hell and trusted him with their lives. We do this. We're burning bridges, Hugh said. DEA finds out we went freelance against the cartel. Even with personal cause, we're done. Prison best case. Then we make sure we don't get caught. Clayton pulled up a map on the screen, replacing the video. Red dots marked Underwood's known operations across 3 states in northern Mexico. Underwood runs a tight ship, but he's got vulnerabilities. He expanded too fast, absorbed 3 smaller organizations in the last year. That means conflicting loyalties, weak points, people who might be convinced to cooperate. Ross was already typing on his laptop. I can pull our operational intelligence. Everything we've gathered on Sinaloa for the last 3 years. Organizational charts, financial networks, transportation routes. It's all classified, but we all have access, and we're still officially DEA for another 72 hours, Clayton finished. We extract everything useful. After that, we resign quietly. Leave letters citing personal tragedy, need for time away. Nothing that raises flags. And then, Gabriel asked, then we become ghosts. We're going to hit them where they feel safe. Low-level dealers, mid-level enforcers, lieutenants, anyone wearing Underwood's colors. We'll make it look like rival cartels at first, keep things confused. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll be too deep in their organization for them to defend against. Hugh studied the map. You're talking about dozens of targets. Maybe hundreds before we get to Underwood himself. 247, Clayton said quietly. I counted everyone in his known organization. Every enforcer, every lieutenant, every corner dealer who pushes his product and carries his flag. Underwood wanted to make this personal. Wanted to make sure I understood that he could reach me anywhere, hurt me through the people I love. His voice dropped to something cold and final. So, I'm going to teach him a lesson about the difference between killing to send a message and killing because you've become the message itself. The room fell silent except for the hum of electronics. These were men who'd operated in the shadows, who'd done things that kept them awake at night for the sake of a greater good. But this was different. This wasn't about national security or the drug war or any official mandate. This was pure vengeance dressed in tactical planning. We need a base of operations, Felix finally said. Somewhere off-grid, close enough to the border to move fast, but secure enough to plan from. I've got a property, Clayton replied. Bought it with combat pay 3 years ago, never registered under my name. 40 acres outside of Sasabe, Arizona. Old ranch, mostly ruins, but the main building is solid. No neighbors for miles. How long do we have? Eric asked. Clayton checked his watch. Local FBI is handling the crime scene. They'll want to interview me within 24 hours. I need to play the devastated son, cooperate fully, make sure nothing points toward what we're planning. You all need to request your leave, make it look routine. We meet at the ranch in 4 days. By then, I'll have our first targets identified. And if someone talks, Gabriel asked, if word gets out about what we're doing, then we accept the consequences. But nobody knows except us. 8 of us against an entire cartel organization. Clayton's smile was terrible to see. Underwood wanted to show me I was powerless. I'm going to show him what happens when you underestimate a man with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Later, after the others had left to begin their preparations, Clayton sat alone in the safe house, his laptop open to surveillance photos of Victor Underwood. The cartel boss lived like a king in a fortified compound outside Hermosillo, protected by dozens of armed guards, surrounded by walls and sensors and all the security blood money could buy. But Clayton had spent 6 years learning how to penetrate exactly those kinds of defenses. He'd studied the cartels from the inside, understood their psychology, their protocols, their weaknesses. The DEA's Special Operations Division didn't just kick down doors and make arrests. They dismantled organizations through intelligence, psychological warfare, and when necessary, extreme prejudice. Now he would use all those skills for something that had nothing to do with duty or orders or the law. This was about a promise made to himself as he'd watched his childhood home burn with his parents inside. Underwood thought he'd broken Clayton, thought he'd demonstrated the futility of opposing cartel power. He'd actually created something much more dangerous. A highly trained operative with extensive cartel intelligence, tactical expertise, and 8 loyal operators willing to follow him into hell itself. Clayton opened a new file on his laptop and began typing. Target list, organizational structure, operational phases. By dawn, he had the skeleton of a campaign that would make the cartel wars look like schoolyard fights. It would be brutal, efficient, and personal. 90 days. That's all he needed. 3 months to dismantle an empire and deliver a very specific message to Victor Underwood. You don't just take family from a man like Clayton Duncan. You create a reckoning that won't stop until it reaches your door. And when it did, no amount of begging would matter. Because this wasn't about justice or law or even righteousness. This was about teaching a brutal lesson to people who thought brutality made them untouchable. They were about to learn otherwise. The funeral was small, closed casket for obvious reasons. Clayton stood in his dress uniform, accepting condolences from neighbors and his parents' friends, playing the role of grieving son with an authenticity that didn't require acting. The pain was real. The rage was real. Only the appearance of helplessness was false. FBI Special Agent Kelly O'Donnell approached him after the service, her expression professionally sympathetic. "Agent Duncan, I'm so sorry for your loss. I need to ask you some questions if you're up for it." "Of course." Clayton gestured to a quiet corner of the funeral home. "Anything to help find who did this. We've reviewed the video sent to you. Our cyber division traced it to a burner phone in Mexico, but the trail went cold. The footage itself was professionally done, the kind of thing we see from cartel intimidation campaigns." "Cartels," Clayton repeated, letting his voice carry just enough controlled anger. "Any idea which one?" "We're exploring several possibilities. Your work with the DEA has made you enemies. The Sonora operation last month eliminated several high-value targets. This could be retaliation. So what happens now? You investigate while these animals go back to business as usual?" O'Donnell's eyes showed genuine sympathy. "I understand your frustration. We're pursuing every lead. But these organizations are sophisticated. They have resources, protection, and they operate across international borders. It's not simple. Nothing ever is." Clayton met her gaze steadily. "I appreciate everything you're doing, Agent O'Donnell. My parents deserved better than this." "They did." She handed him a card. "If you think of anything, or if you receive any further contact, please call me immediately. And Clayton, I know you're trained to solve problems directly. Don't. Let's handle this through proper channels." "Of course." He pocketed the card, knowing he'd never use it. "I'm taking some leave anyway. Time to process everything." After she left, Clayton found Eric waiting by his rental car. "She buy it. She's thorough, but she's got nothing." The video tells them everything and nothing. They know it was cartel work, but proving which cartel and getting any kind of case together will take months, maybe years. If ever. Underwood's smart enough to insulate himself. Eric opened the car door. "The guys are already moving. Ross has been pulling files for 2 days straight. We've got everything from financial tracking to family connections. Your ranch is stocked with weapons and supplies. We could be operational in 48 hours. Clayton took one last look at the funeral home where his parents' remains lay in sealed caskets. Underwood sent me that video to make me feel helpless, to rub in that he could murder them and face no consequences. That's where he miscalculated. How so? He assumed I'd work within the system. He assumed I'd follow rules and protocols and laws. He thought he was dealing with a government agent bound by oversight and regulation. Clayton's expression was cold. He was wrong. He's dealing with someone who knows exactly how to operate outside every rule and system. Someone who spent years learning how to make people disappear. And he just gave me a reason to use every bit of that knowledge. The drive to the ranch took 4 hours through increasingly desolate terrain. Clayton's property sat in a valley between low hills, accessible only by a badly maintained dirt road that wound through scrub brush and rock formations. The main house was adobe and stone, built in the 1940s by a rancher who'd gone bust during a drought. Clayton had bought it through a shell company, paying cash specifically for its isolation and defensibility. By the time he arrived, the transformation was already underway. Ross had set up a command center in what used to be the living room. 3 large monitors displaying maps, organizational charts, and live feeds from various surveillance sources. Hugh and Felix were unloading crates of weapons and equipment from an unmarked truck. Gabriel and Jimmy were running communication checks on encrypted satellite phones. "Welcome home," Eric said, gesturing at the organized chaos. "We're ahead of schedule. Ross has identified 32 priority targets in the Sonora region alone. Low-level dealers, street enforcers, anyone we can confirm is directly part of Underwood's organization." Clayton studied the monitors. Each target had a photo, known address, vehicle information, and assessed threat level. Underwood's operation is like a pyramid. Broad base of street dealers and muscle, middle tier of lieutenants and specialists, top tier of his inner circle. We start at the bottom, work our way up. Why not just go straight for Underwood? Cliff asked. "We know where he lives. Because he's got 50 armed guards in a fortress. We go at him directly, we're dead. No, we need to do this systematically. We hit his operations. We make him paranoid. We force him to pull his protection inward. Every lieutenant we take out makes him weaker. Every dealer we eliminate reduces his revenue and his reach. By the time we get to him, he'll be isolated, afraid, and vulnerable." Ross pulled up a detailed map. "I've been analyzing patterns. Underwood's organization runs drugs through 3 main corridors: Nogales, Agua Prieta, and Sasabe. Each corridor has a lieutenant in charge, with crews of enforcers and transporters. If we hit multiple crews in one night, it'll look like a coordinated rival attack. They'll spend time investigating each other instead of looking for us. Good. That gives us operational cover. What's our resource situation?" Hugh answered. 8 of us, fully armed. I've got enough ammunition for sustained operations. Felix brought enough C4 and detonators to bring down a city block. Gabriel's medical supplies can handle anything short of major surgery. We got encrypted comms, night vision, body armor, everything we used in official operations. Only now it's all off books. Transportation, 4 vehicles, all clean titles registered to different shell companies. Nothing ties back to any of us. Eric pointed to a makeshift garage. 2 trucks, 2 SUVs, all reinforced, all capable of handling rough terrain if we need to go off-road. Clayton nodded slowly, processing the information. His team had prepared with military precision, understanding that this operation would require every bit of skill they developed over years of legitimate work. The difference was they were now accountable to no one except each other. "First hit is tomorrow night," Clayton said. "Target is Ricky Walker, one of Underwood's distributors in Nogales. He runs product through a warehouse on the industrial side of town, uses the location to supply dealers throughout southern Arizona. Intelligence says he keeps 12 to 15 guys on site. Just the 9 of us against 15. Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "We're not assaulting the place. We're going to make it look like they got hit by rivals. Clean, professional, no witnesses. In and out in under 10 minutes. Ross pulled up building schematics. Warehouse is owned by a shell company, but we traced it back to Underwood's financial network. Single-story, concrete block construction, 2 entrances, security cameras on all corners. Walker usually arrives around midnight to oversee shipments." Clayton studied the layout with a tactician's eye. "Felix, you'll handle the security system. Give us a 30-second window to breach before the cameras go dark. Eric and Hugh, You're with me on primary entry. Ross and Jimmy cover the back. Gabriel, Cliff, and Evan provide perimeter security and extraction. Nobody escapes, no evidence left behind. You're talking about killing 15 people, Evan said quietly. Even if they're cartel, that's a lot of blood. They made their choice when they signed up with Underwood. They push poison. They enforce his will through violence. They profit from misery. Clayton's voice carried no doubt. We're not executing innocents. We're removing obstacles between us and the man who murdered my parents while he laughed and filmed it. Anyone who works for him is complicit in everything he's done. The room fell silent. These were men who'd killed before, always under official authority, always with the understanding that they were serving a larger purpose. This was different, personal, vengeful, operating in a moral gray area that would haunt them even as they committed to it. Tomorrow night, then, Hugh finally said, we move at 0200 hours when the warehouse is fully staffed, but the neighborhood is empty. We make it surgical. We make it clean. Clayton spent the rest of the day reviewing every detail of the operation. He studied Walker's patterns, memorized building layouts, identified potential complications. This first hit would set the tone for everything that followed. It had to be perfect, not just successful, but sending a message that Underwood's organization was under attack from forces they couldn't predict or defend against. As darkness fell over the Arizona desert, Clayton stood outside the ranch house, looking south toward Mexico. Somewhere beyond those mountains, Victor Underwood was living in his fortress, believing himself untouchable. He'd killed Clayton's parents as casually as swatting flies, secure in the knowledge that American law enforcement couldn't touch him across international borders. But Clayton wasn't law enforcement anymore. He was something Underwood had created with his own cruelty, a weapon with no restraints, pointed directly at everything the cartel boss had built. The video was meant to break him, to demonstrate the futility of opposing cartel power. Instead, it had freed him from doubt, from law, from any consideration except achieving one singular objective, making Victor Underwood understand, in his final moments, that he'd made the worst mistake of his life when he decided to make this personal. The countdown had begun. 90 days, 247 targets, one promise. Underwood would beg before the end, just as he'd shown his most recent video, sent to Clayton 3 days after the funeral. In it, the cartel boss had been cocky, dismissive, certain of his invincibility. That video now played on a loop in Clayton's mind, not as intimidation, but as motivation. Soon, very soon, there would be another video. But this time, Underwood would be the one pleading, crying, realizing too late that some men don't break. They bend into something infinitely more dangerous. And Clayton Duncan, in that moment, had been into a force of nature that wouldn't stop until every single person who worked for Victor Underwood was dead, and Underwood himself understood the true meaning of helplessness. The first strike would come at dawn. After that, there would be no turning back. The warehouse district of Nogales lay still at 2 in the morning, industrial buildings casting long shadows under sparse streetlights. Clayton and his team moved through the darkness with practiced silence, 8 shadows converging on their target from multiple angles. They wore black tactical gear stripped of any identifying marks, faces covered, weapons suppressed. Felix reached the security panel first, attaching a bypass device that would loop the camera feed and give them their 30-second window. 30 seconds starting now, he whispered into his comm. Clayton, Eric, and Hugh hit the front entrance with a breaching charge that blew the reinforced door off its hinges. The explosion was shockingly loud in the quiet night, but they were inside before anyone could react. The warehouse interior was divided into sections. One area for storage, another for cutting and packaging product, a third serving as a makeshift armory and living space. Ricky Walker's crew was scrambling, reaching for weapons, shouting in Spanish. But Clayton's team moved with the precision of long practice. 3-round bursts from suppressed weapons, controlled fire. Targets dropped before they could return fire. The element of surprise was total and devastating. Walker himself emerged from a back office, a heavy-set man in expensive casual wear, his face twisted in panic. He raised a gold-plated pistol, fired wildly. The round went wide. Hugh's response didn't. Walker went down hard, the gold pistol clattering across concrete. "Clear front section," Eric called. "Clear rear." Ross's voice came through the comm from the back entrance. The entire engagement lasted 8 minutes. When it was over, 15 men lay dead, the warehouse was secure, and Clayton's team was already setting the next phase. Felix placed charges on the drug shipment. Approximately half a ton of cocaine and heroin, street value in the millions. They made it look like a theft gone wrong, like rival cartels had hit the location for the product. "Burn it," Clayton ordered. The charges detonated as they withdrew, flames consuming product, bodies, and evidence. By the time fire trucks arrived, there would be nothing left but charred remains and questions. The local police would assume cartel warfare. The investigation would stall in a maze of conflicting theories, and Underwood would be left wondering who dared to hit his operations. Back at the ranch, the team debriefed in silence. They just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, killed 15 men in a coordinated assault that had no legal authority behind it. The weight of it settled over them like a physical presence. "That's 15, Evans said quietly. 232 to go. Underwood will respond," Ross noted, pulling up intelligence feeds on his monitors. "He'll increase security, maybe try to identify who hit him. We need to hit again tomorrow night, different location, keep him off balance." Clayton nodded. "Target 2 is Alexander Blanchard, one of Underwood's enforcers in Agua Prieta. Runs a crew that specializes in intimidation and collection. Intelligence says he's personally responsible for at least 20 murders. We take him and his crew, make it look like the same rivals." Over the next 2 weeks, they hit 6 more locations. A drug lab outside Hermosillo, a transport hub in San Luis, a stash house in Phoenix that supplied Underwood's American distribution network. Each operation was surgical, professional, leaving behind bodies and confusion, but no evidence that pointed to Clayton's team. The body count climbed. 43, 57, 72. Each number represented a member of Underwood's organization who would never threaten, kill, or profit from misery again. Clayton felt no remorse. These weren't civilians. They were predators who'd chosen their path, and now they were discovering that predators could become prey. But the pace was taking its toll. The team was operating on minimal sleep, moving between locations, constantly planning the next hit. Gabriel was treating minor wounds. A grazing shot Eric took in Hermosillo, a shrapnel injury Jimmy suffered when a drug lab exploded more violently than expected. "We're pushing too hard," Hugh said after their 8th operation. "We're still effective, but we're getting tired. Tired operators make mistakes." "We can't slow down," Clayton countered. "Every day we give Underwood is a day he uses to strengthen defenses, figure out what's happening. We keep hitting him, keep the pressure constant. He needs to feel like his entire organization is collapsing around him." Ross pulled up news reports from Mexican media. "It's working. The media is reporting a cartel war in Sonora. They think the Jalisco cartel is making a play for Sinaloa territory. Underwood's people are scrambling, investigating each other, trying to figure out where the attacks are coming from." "Good. That buys us time." Clayton studied an organizational chart Ross had assembled. "We've cleared most of the lower tier. Now we move to middle management, lieutenants, specialized operators, the people Underwood actually knows personally. This is where it gets harder. These targets will be better protected, more paranoid." The shift in tactics came the next week. Instead of hitting multiple locations rapidly, they began targeted assassinations. A sniper shot taking out Orlando Haas, Underwood's transportation coordinator, as he left his mistress's apartment. A car bomb that killed Floyd Sims, the cartel's money launderer, along with 2 bodyguards. A home invasion that eliminated Jeremy Lindsay, Underwood's chief enforcer, and his entire personal security detail. Each operation required days of surveillance, planning, execution. Clayton insisted on minimizing collateral damage. They were hunting specific individuals, not waging indiscriminate war. But the reality was that anyone in proximity to their targets was at risk. Bodyguards died. Girlfriends who were in the wrong place at the wrong time became casualties. "We're not what we were," Gabriel said one night, his hands shaking slightly as he cleaned his weapon. "We were DEA. We had rules, oversight, accountability. Now we're monsters." Clayton finished. "Murderers? Is that what you're going to say?" "I'm saying we've lost something. Every person we kill, every operation we run, we're becoming the thing we used to hunt." Clayton's voice was cold. "Underwood burned my parents alive. He filmed it. He sent it to me with a Christmas greeting. You think I care about philosophy or moral equivalence? You think any of this matters compared to that?" "I think it matters to who you are when this is over," Gabriel said quietly. "If you survive this, if we all survive this, who are you going to be? The man your parents raised, or the killer you become?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, because the truth was Clayton didn't know. He was operating on pure purpose, fueled by rage and grief that burned through any other consideration. Revenge had become everything, the only thing that mattered. His parents were dead, their murderer was laughing, and he would not stop until that balance was corrected. By the end of week 5, the body count had reached 147. Underwood's organization was bleeding talent and leadership. The Mexican media was in a frenzy, reporting on what they called the Sonora Purge, a brutal campaign that seemed to target everyone connected to the Sinaloa cartel's regional operations. And finally, Underwood broke his silence. The video arrived through the same encrypted channel he'd used to send the Christmas message. But this time, Victor Underwood wasn't smiling. He looked haggard, older, standing in what appeared to be a reinforced bunker rather than his luxurious compound. "Clayton Duncan," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "I know it's you. I don't know how. I don't know who you've got helping you, but I know. You think you're untouchable? You think you can just murder my people without consequences? I have resources you can't imagine. I have connections, protection, power." He leaned closer to the camera. "But I'm a reasonable man. You made your point. You've hurt me, cost me people and money. So let's talk. Name your price. $10 million cash, wired anywhere you want. 20 million. Whatever it takes. You walk away, I walk away. We both survive. Isn't that better than this?" Clayton watched the video once, then deleted it. No response. No negotiation. Just continued operations, grinding away at what remained of Underwood's organization like a relentless machine. "He's scared," Eric noted. "That's good. Scared people make mistakes." "He's also dangerous," Hugh countered. "Scared people with resources do desperate things. We need to expect retaliation, maybe against targets we care about." "There's nothing left for him to target," Clayton said flatly. "My parents are dead. I have no siblings, no close family. You're all operational and protected. What can he threaten that matters?" But Underwood proved more creative than they'd anticipated. 3 days after his video, local police raided the ranch. Someone had tipped them off to illegal weapons, claimed the property was being used for criminal activity. Clayton and his team were forced to scatter, abandoning their command center and relocating to a backup position Ross had established, a house in Tucson hidden behind multiple shell companies. The interruption cost them precious time. Ross had to rebuild his intelligence network from scratch. They lost access to real-time surveillance of several key targets. And worst of all, the raid indicated that Underwood had figured out they were operating from American soil, which meant he was feeding information to law enforcement to use them as a weapon. "He's adapting," Ross said, frustration evident. "We've hit him so hard he's changed tactics. Instead of trying to defend his whole organization, he's consolidating. Pull back his remaining people to core locations, increase security massively, and use American law enforcement to complicate our operations. Then we adapt too," Clayton said. "We've taken out 163 of his people. Less than 100 left, including Underwood himself. Most of those are probably holed up with him in his compound. We've accomplished what we set out to do. We've isolated him, made him paranoid, stripped away his empire. Now we move to endgame, assaulting a fortified compound with 9 of us against 50-plus defenders." Hugh shook his head. That's a suicide mission. Not an assault. A siege. We don't need to storm his fortress. We need to make him understand that he'll never be safe, that we'll keep coming forever. We need to break him psychologically before we break him physically. Over the next week, they began a campaign of psychological warfare that pushed the boundaries of cruelty. They kidnapped Underwood's younger brother, Ricky Bailey, a relatively minor player who handled logistics. Instead of killing him immediately, they sent Underwood daily videos of his brother's deteriorating condition, begging for mercy, explaining in detail what would happen if Underwood didn't surrender himself. When Underwood didn't respond, they sent his brother's body back in pieces, delivered to his compound's front gate. They hacked into Underwood's security system and played recordings of his parents' screams, the audio from that Christmas video, on loop through every speaker in his compound. Psychological torture that gave him no rest, no peace, constant reminder of what he'd done and what was coming for him. They eliminated his remaining lieutenants in increasingly public ways. Rod Buckley, his head of security, was gunned down at a restaurant in broad daylight. 30 rounds fired from a passing vehicle. Everett Henderson, his financial advisor, disappeared from a guarded hotel, found a week later in a shallow grave with evidence of prolonged torture. The message was clear. Distance didn't matter. Security didn't matter. Underwood's people were all dead men walking. And finally, 68 days into Clayton's 90-day leave, the breakthrough came. One of Underwood's remaining guards, a man named Cliff Fletcher, who'd only been with the organization for 6 months, reached out through intermediary channels. He wanted out. He'd provide intelligence, access codes, anything they needed in exchange for his life and safe passage to the United States. Ross verified Fletcher's information against what they already knew. It's legitimate. He's giving us compound layouts, guard rotations, Underwood's daily routine. Everything we need to breach that place. It could be a trap, he warned. Underwood could be using him to lure us in. Maybe, Clayton agreed. But we verify everything Fletcher tells us through independent surveillance. We don't trust him. We use him. And if it is a trap, we turn around. They spent 2 weeks confirming Fletcher's intelligence, watching the compound through telephoto lenses, tracking guard movements, mapping the facility in exhaustive detail. Everything Fletcher had given them checked out. The compound was indeed heavily fortified, but it had weaknesses, gaps in camera coverage, patrol patterns that repeated, moments of vulnerability during shift changes. And through it all, they kept up the pressure. 5 more of Underwood's men died in targeted strikes. A shipment of weapons meant for the compound was intercepted and destroyed. Clayton made sure Underwood knew, day after day, that his world was shrinking, that the walls closing in around him weren't protection. They were a tomb he'd built for himself. The second video from Underwood arrived on day 79. This time, the cartel boss was barely recognizable. His expensive clothes hung off a frame that had lost 20 pounds. His eyes were hollow, haunted. The fortress bunker behind him looked less like protection and more like a prison. "Please," Underwood whispered, all pretense of bravado gone. "Clayton, please. I'll give you anything. Everything. My entire fortune, my operations, my life's work. Just stop. I can't. I can't do this anymore. You've won. You've destroyed everything. Isn't that enough?" Tears ran down his face, genuine terror in every line of his body. "I made a mistake. I understand that now. I never should have touched your family. I never should have sent that video. I was stupid, arrogant, thought I was untouchable. But you've shown me. You've taught me. So please, I'm begging you. Let me live. Let me surrender. I'll confess to everything, go to prison, whatever you want. Just make it stop." Clayton watched the video 3 times. This was what he'd wanted, to see Victor Underwood reduced to a begging, broken shell of a man. To make him understand helplessness and terror. To take everything from him just as he'd taken everything from Clayton. But looking at the pathetic figure on screen, Clayton felt no satisfaction. Just empty purpose. Just the knowledge that this wasn't over yet. "He thinks begging will save him," Eric said. "What do we tell him?" "Nothing," Clayton replied. "We don't respond. We finish this. 10 days left on my leave. 247 targets. We're at 239. 8 more, including Underwood. We complete the mission. The assault on Underwood's compound began at 3 in the morning on day 87. Clayton's team moved through the darkness with the precision of their dozens of previous operations. But this time the stakes were infinitely higher. They weren't hitting a warehouse or taking out an isolated target. They were breaching a fortress designed to repel exactly this kind of attack. Cliff Fletcher had provided the access codes to the eastern security gate, along with the schedule for that night's guard rotation. He'd confirmed that Underwood had pulled everyone inside the compound's inner sanctum, creating a defensive position that was nearly impregnable from the outside, which is why Clayton's team wasn't going through the outside. Felix had spent 3 days studying the compound's infrastructure: water, power, ventilation. The fortress was designed to withstand a frontal assault, but it still needed utilities. And utilities meant access points, tunnels, weaknesses. The main water line ran underground from a nearby well, passing through a maintenance tunnel that had minimal security because it was considered too small for a serious breach. It was just large enough for one operator at a time to crawl through. Clayton went first, pulling himself through the claustrophobic concrete pipe with only a penlight to see by. Behind him, his team followed in single file, 8 men carrying enough weapons and explosives to wage a small war. The tunnel was hot, cramped, the walls pressing in from all sides. But Clayton kept moving, counting distance in his head, comparing it to the blueprints Fletcher had provided. After 30 minutes that felt like hours, they reached the access panel that would put them inside the compound's utilities building. Eric carefully cut through the lock mechanism, and they emerged into a small room filled with pumps and electrical panels. "We're in," Clayton whispered into his comm, proceeding to primary target location. The compound's interior was a maze of corridors, security checkpoints, and reinforced doors. But Fletcher's intelligence had provided them with camera blind spots and patrol routes. They moved like ghosts, eliminating isolated guards with suppressed weapons and knives, leaving behind bodies that wouldn't be discovered until morning. 6 guards down. 7. 8. They reached the central building where Underwood had barricaded himself with his remaining men. According to Fletcher, the cartel boss was in a reinforced panic room on the 2nd floor, surrounded by his last 20 loyal soldiers. A fortress within a fortress. Hugh studied the building's exterior. Front entrance is a kill zone. They'll have clear fields of fire on anyone approaching. "Then we don't approach," Clayton said. "Felix, can you breach the wall?" The demolitions expert examined the structure. Concrete block reinforced with rebar. "I could put a charge on it, but it'll be loud. We'll lose surprise." "We've already got surprise. They're expecting an assault from outside the compound. We're inside their perimeter. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll be through the wall and on them." Felix planted shaped charges while the rest of the team positioned themselves. The explosion would create a breach point, but it would also alert everyone in the building. They'd have maybe 30 seconds before Underwood's remaining guards organized a response. Charges set, detonating in 3, 2, 1. The blast tore a 6-foot hole in the building's sidewall, concrete and rebar flying inward. Clayton's team poured through the breach, splitting into 2 groups. Eric, Hugh, and Ross went left to clear the 1st floor. Clayton, Felix, Gabriel, Jimmy, Cliff, and Evan went right and up the stairs toward Underwood's panic room. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Underwood's guards were responding, but they were confused, disorganized, shooting at shadows in smoke-filled corridors. Clayton's team moved with practiced efficiency. 3-round bursts, controlled fire, constant communication through their comms. 2 guards down at the stairwell. 3 more in the 2nd floor hallway. The panic room door loomed ahead, reinforced steel with a biometric lock. According to Fletcher, only Underwood could open it from the inside. Clayton approached the door, speaking loudly enough to be heard through the steel. "Victor Underwood, you have 30 seconds to open this door and surrender, or we're coming through it and everyone inside dies. Your choice." Silence. Then frantic Spanish, muffled arguments. The biometric lock clicked. The door swung open. Victor Underwood stood there, hands raised, his face a mask of terror. Behind him, 15 men held weapons but looked uncertain, torn between fighting and surrendering. The room was lavishly appointed. Leather furniture, a full bar, monitors showing security feeds from around the compound. A gilded cage for a trapped animal. "Don't shoot," Underwood said, his voice breaking. "Please don't shoot. I surrender. I'll do anything you want." Clayton gestured with his weapon. Everyone disarm. Weapons on the ground now. Anyone reaches for anything, everyone dies. They complied, guns clattering to expensive tile. These weren't hardened warriors anymore. They were frightened men who'd watched their organization get systematically dismantled, who'd spent weeks living in fear of the next attack. The fight had been beaten out of them long before Clayton's team breached their sanctuary. "Bind them," Clayton ordered. His team moved efficiently, zip-tying hands and feet, securing each person. Some of the prisoners were crying. Others stared at nothing, shock evident in their vacant expressions. When they were all secured, Clayton approached Underwood directly. The cartel boss who'd seemed so powerful in that Christmas video now looked like a shell of himself. Gaunt, age broken. "You remember my parents?" Clayton asked quietly. "Arnold and Megan Duncan. You burned them alive. Filmed it. Sent it to me as a Christmas present." "I'm sorry," Underwood whispered. "I'm so sorry. It was business, nothing personal." Clayton's fist caught him in the jaw, snapping his head back. "Nothing personal? You made a video laughing while my mother screamed my name. You called me personally to make sure I heard them die. And you're going to tell me it was nothing personal? I was wrong. I admit it. What do you want from me? I want you to understand what you did. I want you to feel what they felt. But here's the difference between you and me, Victor. I'm not going to torture you. I'm not going to make you suffer for hours. I'm just going to make sure you die knowing that everything you built is gone. Everyone you trusted is dead. And your name will be remembered as the cautionary tale of what happens when you cross the wrong person." Clayton pulled out his phone, pressed record. "This is Victor Underwood, head of the Sinaloa Cartel's Sonora operations. On December 24th of last year, he ordered the murder of Arnold and Megan Duncan, parents of DEA Special Agent Clayton Duncan. He filmed their deaths and sent the footage as a Christmas greeting. Over the past 90 days, a team of operators systematically eliminated every member of his organization, 247 people, until only he remained. This is his confession." He turned the camera to Underwood. "Tell them what you did. Tell them exactly what you did to my parents." Underwood's face crumbled. Between sobs, he confessed everything. The order, the execution, the video, his belief that he was untouchable. He described torching the house, listening to the screams, thinking it was funny that he was sending a message to an American agent who couldn't touch him. When he finished, Clayton stopped recording. This video goes to the FBI, DEA, and every major news outlet in Mexico and the United States. Your confession, your words. Everyone will know exactly what kind of monster you were. Underwood looked up, fresh fear in his eyes. "You going to kill me right now?" "No, I'm going to let Mexican authorities take you. Let you face trial for your crimes. Let you spend whatever's left of your miserable life in a cell, knowing that you destroyed yourself." Clayton smiled without humor. "You thought you were teaching me about powerlessness, but I taught you about consequences. Every empire you built, every person you corrupted, every dollar you made, all of it gone because you decided to make this personal with the wrong man." He turned to his team. "Eric, call it in. Anonymous tip to Mexican federal police. Give them this location. Tell them Victor Underwood is here with evidence of his crimes. We extract before they arrive." "Wait," Underwood said desperately. "You're just leaving? After everything?" "After everything, yes. Because killing you would be mercy, Victor. Living with what you've become, what you've lost, rotting in a cell for the rest of your life, while everyone knows you were broken by one man seeking revenge for his parents. That's a far worse punishment than a bullet." As they prepared to leave, Underwood's voice rose to a scream. "You're a monster. You're worse than me. You killed hundreds of people. You're no better." Clayton paused at the door, looked back one last time. "You're probably right. But at least I sleep at night, knowing I'm a monster who protects the people I love. You're just a monster who destroys them." They extracted through the same maintenance tunnel. leaving behind the secured prisoners and enough evidence to put Underwood away for multiple life sentences. By the time Mexican federal police arrived to find a cartel boss gift-wrapped with a confession video, Clayton's team was across the border, splitting up to disappear into different cities across the United States. The media coverage was immediate and sensational. The Sonora Purge had a face now. Victor Underwood, who'd confessed to dozens of murders, including the Christmas killing of 2 American citizens. His arrest was hailed as a major victory against the cartels, though authorities were baffled about who'd conducted the 3-month campaign that led to his capture. Anonymous sources suggested rival cartels. Others speculated about a rogue special forces unit. The FBI quietly closed its investigation into the Duncan murders, satisfied that justice had been served even if the mechanism was mysterious. Clayton watched the news from a hotel room in Denver, his 90 days of leave officially over. His phone rang. Director Marsh, his superior at the DEA. "Duncan, heard you've been taking some personal time." "Yes, sir. Dealing with my parents' deaths. It's been difficult. I'm sure it has been." Interesting news out of Mexico. Victor Underwood in custody, confessing to the Duncan murders among other crimes. Remarkable coincidence in timing. Clayton said nothing. "I don't suppose you know anything about the 200-plus cartel members who've died over the past 3 months? Or the team of operators who seem to know exactly where to hit, how to move when a strike?" "I've been on leave, sir. Grieving. Trying to process everything." A long pause. "Your resignation letter is on my desk. Medical leave, permanent, citing psychological trauma from the loss of your parents. It's already approved. You'll receive full benefits and a commendation for your service. As far as the DEA is concerned, you're officially retired." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me, Duncan. This is me pretending I don't know what you did, because officially investigating it would open doors nobody wants opened. You got your revenge. You destroyed an entire cartel organization. In the process, you probably saved thousands of lives by taking that poison off the streets. But you did it outside every law, every rule, every principle we're supposed to uphold. I understand. Do you? Because the man I knew 6 months ago believed in the system, believed in justice through proper channels. That man died with his parents. Whatever you've become, it's not a DEA agent anymore. You're right. That man did die. But he left behind someone who understands that sometimes the system isn't enough. Sometimes the only justice is the kind you make yourself." Marsh sighed heavily. "Your team's resignations are also approved. All of you are officially retired on medical grounds. The message is clear. Don't ever come back. Don't ever speak about what you did. And if you're smart, don't ever do anything like this again, because next time there won't be looking the other way." The line went dead. Clayton sat in silence, processing the end of his career, the completion of his revenge, the 3 months of violence and death that had consumed his life. He'd achieved what he set out to do. Underwood was broken, his organization destroyed, his name forever associated with the Duncan murders. Justice of a sort. But Gabriel's question haunted him. Who is he now? The man his parents raised, or the killer he'd become? The truth was probably both, and neither. He was something new, forged in grief and rage and the systematic application of violence. He'd crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed, done things that would haunt him forever. But he'd also honored his parents' memory in the only way that mattered to him, by making sure their killer paid. His phone buzzed. A text from Eric. Team scattered but staying in touch. "What's next for you?" Clayton considered the question. "What did you do after revenge? After you'd reduced your enemy to a broken shell? After you'd violated every principle you once held? After you'd become the very thing you used to hunt?" He replied, "Going to disappear for a while. Figure out who I am now. You all take care of yourselves." Another text, this one from Ross. Underwood's cartel is fractured. His confession caused chaos in Sinaloa. Word is at least 3 rival factions are fighting over what's left. You started a war. Clayton almost smiled. Good. Let them tear each other apart. Less poison on the streets. One final text from a number he didn't recognize. You were supposed to be destroyed. Broken. That's what I wanted when I sent that video. But you became something else entirely. Something terrifying. I hope you find peace because I never will. VU. Underwood, texting from custody somehow. Even in defeat, trying to have the last word. Clayton deleted the message without responding. Underwood didn't deserve even that much attention. He packed his bag, checked out of the hotel, and drove west toward the coast. Somewhere to start over, rebuild something from the ruins of the man he'd been. His parents would have wanted that. Not revenge, but recovery. Not death, but life. But first, he got them justice. Imperfect, violent, illegal justice. But justice nonetheless. As the sun set over the Pacific, Clayton Duncan stood on a beach in Oregon, watching waves crash against rocks. He'd killed more than 200 people in 90 days. He'd become a ghost that haunted cartel nightmares. He'd reduced a powerful crime boss to a whimpering, broken prisoner. And he'd learned that revenge, while satisfying, didn't heal. It didn't bring back the dead or erase the trauma. It just created more ghosts, more nightmares, more broken pieces that would never quite fit back together. But his parents were avenged. Victor Underwood would rot in a cell, his empire destroyed, his name forever linked to the worst mistake he'd ever made. That had to be enough, because it was all Clayton had left.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.